Welcome to another episode of Coptales&Cocktails. And if you're a regular listener here on Coptales&Cocktails, you know how proud we are to have Emery Lane, a first responder clothing line, as one of our sponsors. Emery Lane has a large variety of products for women and children, and they're quickly increasing their offerings for men as well. Those of you watching at home, you can see Howard wearing one right now.
It's bullets.
The thing I personally love about Emery Lane, though, Howard, is that they are family owned and operated by a law enforcement officer's wife, and all their products are designed in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I'm going here for a few days. Emery Lane is one of the largest selections of exclusively designed first responder apparel on the market today. You got to go check them out on Instagram or Facebook at Emery Lane Co. and use promo code STICKS for 20% off your next order. That's promo code STICKS for 20% off your next order in Emery Lane Co. EMORYLANECO.com.
You're really good at those, man. You're
Thank
getting
you.
kind of professional
Well,
at them.
I've got another one for you.
Oh, bring it on.
Let me tell you about Crime in Place.
Ooh.
The first rule of staying safe, be aware of your surroundings. Crime in Place is the iPhone app that keeps you aware of crime rates anywhere you are, anywhere you want to go, or just need to know nationwide. Crime in Place uses current FBI data for property and personal crimes, so it is always up to date. What's more, it's free to download. Big fan of free.
Free.
Just go to the crime.app. That's the crime.app. Stay aware, stay safe with Crime in Place.
Yeah, absolutely. For everybody out there traveling.
No, it is. It's a great app for sure. So, Howard, how you doing,
Sean,
buddy?
man, what's going on?
Yeah, man, good to see you. Man, this guy we've got with us today, I'm really, really, really thrilled to have him on here to give us our time. And, you know, I was a cop just under 25 years.
Yeah,
or
we
24
know
and some
we've
time.
Heard,
I know
we've
we've gone through this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I know.
So-
all cops. I know all your cop stories.
Yeah,
That's why we're doing this. So I don't have to listen to your cop stories anymore. I can listen to interesting.
Everybody,
cop stories.
like
That's
real
why I'm
cop
doing-
stories, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing this right now.
Absolutely. Well, the guy we have today, he's got a story or two for us. But I would say during my time in law enforcement, or when I knew I wanted to be a cop, there's a few incidents throughout the country in modern day policing that have really stood out. I think one of the first ones that I can think of was the LA bank robbery.
Oh, that was crazy, man. When those guys, it was like Grand Theft Auto, and they were just getting nailed, and they were walking around in body armor just taking shots.
Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, you know, they had a trunk full of trunk full of rifles in their car. Cops at the time, we didn't carry patrol rifles back then. You know, those guys were going into a pawn shop to get rifles. The cops were literally going to a pawn shop to try to get long guns and try to battle with those guys. Then obviously 9/11 was a big deal. You know, we talked about it with Duty Run on here, the number of law enforcement officers as well as civilians that died that day. And another one that really stands out to me that's a big deal was July of 2016 in Dallas, when there was a mass shooting that occurred down there where law enforcement were actually targeted.
Yeah, that was a rough one, too.
It was a horrible deal, absolutely horrible deal. So our guest today is a officer from Dallas PD. I believe a senior corporal or master corporal, and I apologize. I'll let him straighten me out on that. But we have got Matt Baines on here with us today. Pleasure having you, buddy.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here.
Matt, I got to say, before we get in talking, you know the name of this podcast, don't you?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Coptales&Cocktails.
Cocktails, right.
So we've got the cocktail. That's you. We need a cocktail to go with it. So he has selected a Four Roses. We've got our Four Roses single barrel here with us in studio, and so we're going to give us a nice little pour.
As we always say, anything but Crown Royal Apple. That stuff is horrible. Matt, you ever had that?
I don't do any of the flavored bourbons or whiskeys. You know, it's just I've tried them, and I end up giving the whole bottle away after, you know.
Smart man.
One glass.
I mean, we tried to mix some with Coke, and it made Coke taste bad. It was awful. We did that. So let me ask you a question here, sir.
Sure.
You have a very powerful piece of facial hair on you.
Yes,
all of our listeners can't see that, but he has a substantial goatee. And right before we were getting into this, I made reference to his goatee, and he showed us a picture of his goatee on the phone when he was working undercover. And that's an impressive pelt you got there, sir. Thing was like running down to his, what was that, mid-navel?
Yeah.
top
Sure,
of the six pack.
For you, that's the top of your belly.
That's right.
It would hit Howard's belly and then curve out, resting on it.
Well, at least it would stay flat, you know. So you obviously got into policing and ended up in undercover. So you want to tell us how you got into policing, and then we'll hear one of those undercover stories because we always like those.
Sure. Well, I started in the military. Well, if you want to consider the Coast Guard, it was Department of Transportation back in the 90s when I was in the Coast Guard. So, and I got into the law enforcement aspect then at a patrol boat, the small boat stations, and I was basically a water cop. You know, kind of did the game warden duties, things like that. Here you go, guys.
Absolutely.
Oh, cheers.
So, cheers to you, brother.
Yeah.
And for your time in the service, for real. I mean,
Sure.
Coast Guard's cute, you know, but
Yeah, well, it was cute.
No.
It was fun. It was, you know, it was one of the coolest jobs that I've ever had, to be honest with you. But,
So you in the Coast Guard, you just kind of cruise up and down beaches,
like David Hasselhoff.
exactly, yeah.
and
I
people.
was in
people are
Texas
griping.
beaches, you know. I was in South Padre Island just cruising the beach and for spring break, you know. So we stayed busy, you know.
Hard job.
Right. And anyway, that's where I kind of got introduced to it, and then I got out and finished up with a college degree in criminal justice because it was kind of the easiest and quickest way out to get the bachelor's, you know. So
I'll vouch for that. I'll vouch for that.
Yeah, sure. So the rest is kind of history. You know, what else am I going to do with 4 years military and a criminal justice degree? So Dallas picked me up pretty quick. I did probably 7 years in patrol. Learned more, you know, learned quite a bit about just being a street cop and working Northeast Dallas. And then always had the, you know, in patrol, I never was interested in the speeding and the ticket writing. And there was just so many murders and felony offenses going on and that's kind of where the action was. That's where your violent encounters, all the exciting police work was felony offenses. And so all my arrests tend to stem from narcotics. So I applied, got in there, started at the uniform level, then applied for the undercover street squads doing just street level dope, then went up to mid-level and spent, I think, 7 or 8 years undercover in narcotics, and then went over to SWAT and then came back to narcotics. So,
Well, how long did it take you to grow that goatee? That thing had to be at least what, 1.5 yards long?
sure, you know, and no one believes me when I say this, but it took about 4 months.
Really?
Damn, dude. What kind of – they don't test for steroids or anything there
I know,
in Dallas? I
I
mean,
didn't-
what kind of growth? You got Miracle Grow? What are you doing?
I guess I didn't use any kind of fertilization or anything. I mean, it I just
suave.
stopped shaving and it took off, you know. And I had my wife would braid it for me, you know. And so, but those were good times, you know, just running loose in the streets of Dallas with all the city money. And
Howard lets his girl braid his back.
Yeah, it's pretty.
So
it looks good
it's
right
all
now.
good. He's got like cornrows right now.
It's French braided right now.
So-
looks like one of those little baby pigs, you know.
Yeah, it's
it is.
cute.
When they braid
It's
the
cute.
manes of horses, that's what it's like.
Matt, what year did you come on with Dallas?
2001.
So I'm familiar with Dallas. I mean, we are here, both Jason and Howard and I. I mean, I know Northeast Dallas. That's the problem area.
That's the hood.
I mean, it is. It's the hood, and that's where things are. They're getting after. They're cracking. They're busy. 2000. I mean, you're talking, you know, crack cocaine. The violence that goes along with that's everywhere. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah, that was when just before that, mid and late 90s, the Jamaicans kind of took over and started pushing a lot of dope, which created a lot of the turf wars and a lot of the gang and narcotics killing. And Northeast was pretty diverse. You know, you've got your nicer areas, you got your good restaurants, and then you got some a lot of apartments and some hoods, some pretty violent offenses going on there. And then of course the southern parts of Dallas, you know, probably even worse, really. But I like Northeast because, you know, the good restaurants, a lot of diversity in the community and stuff.
Well, so you said the Jamaicans were taking over Dallas,
Yeah.
which is kind of funny if you think about it, right? How did the Jamaicans get?
They
to
were
Dallas?
trying.
Yeah.
They were trying. I think all the Dallas dope dealers kind of snuffed them out. You know, it was a bloody war.
Who was the gang that was doing the snuffing to the Jamaicans?
Let's see. We had I guess I'm gonna have to revert back to my gang unit days. But if any of my DPD brethren see this, they're probably gonna laugh because I'm so outdated. But there was the Bonton Bloods, there was Fish Trap Boys, there was Best for Less, there were
Fish Trap Boys.
yeah, they they had some pretty hard clicks. They still do in Dallas, and it's just like when Katrina hit. A lot of them got transplanted up here, and the turf war started again. I was actually in patrol when that happened, and that was out of control.
Yeah.
And,
When you say these turf wars, I mean you're having multiple shootings a night.
sure, yes,
Jeez.
yeah,
How big is Dallas? It's a little bit bigger than Tulsa.
yeah. It's the fifth largest city. I'm not sure the population. I've stopped keeping track of all that stuff. Now that I'm in more of I guess, a safer position. I wouldn't call it an administrative position, but yeah, I don't really know all the stats
So hey, tell us a story when you got to flex that big old goatee on somebody working undercover. So were you working undercover narcotics? When you were doing mid-level stuff? Were you trying to get to the dealers that are a little higher up?
Matt, before you answer, let me ask you this,
Sure.
man. I work dope here, and I know a large majority of guys that quote unquote work undercover. They get to look undercover, but they're not doing any undercover work themselves. There's a lot of guys that all they do is just manage informants. So they get to wear blue jeans, hat backwards, type of stuff.
Right.
Man, were you out there yourself doing? Because that's a rarity.
Very, very common misconception, even among police departments and other police officers. And when you go and train at different areas around the country, you'll be in class where people say, I'm an undercover position, but it's more of a what we would call deployment, where you're wearing just blue jeans and a shirt, but you're out just watching you're trying to track burglars, and it's not interacting with the criminal element. Undercover is real undercover in Dallas, and we do our own dirt work, buy our own dope, file our own cases. It's honest to God, real undercover work, and we'll put together conspiracy cases, all the way from the street level, just $20 crack rock to multiple kilos. We do all our own civil seizures, property seizures, vehicle, houses, properties. All that is done in the city of Dallas, and it is a rarity. It's going away quickly around the nation for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, okay, I've got a couple civilian questions to ask you. The first one is, if somebody asks if you're a cop, do you have to tell them you're a cop?
No, that is, that I don't know why that keeps lingering, but even in vice and narcotics, that's the very first thing they're always going to ask you if they don't know you. It's crazy. I've never understood it.
You say you guys might lie to criminals?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
We don't have to be truthful with them,
Right.
unless it's a Miranda. I mean, even in interviews, at times,
Right.
as long as you don't make them a promise to get them to admit something, you don't even have to be honest with them in interviews,
Okay. Well,
You tell them, hey, yeah, your homeboy told me you shot him. I mean, their homeboy didn't tell them. You just tell them. You lie to them.
And he says, bullshit, he's the one that shot him. And then you got something there.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So the other question is when you're working undercover, have you ever been in a situation where somebody's tested you to either break the law or do some drugs or any of that crap?
I would on a weekly basis. And, there's guys out there still doing the craft, so I'm not going to disclose too much of the little trade secrets. But there's a lot of training, and that's what I do now is I train the new detectives that are coming up, and we put them through these type of scenarios, and before they go knock on their first dope house door, they've been trained and they're ready for all of the situations that we've experienced over the years.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. You're always put in that position. If you're working hard undercover, it's constant. So yeah, for sure. You're always asked to prove you're not a cop.
I know.
Yeah,
for us, we've got a departmental guideline manual and one for special investigation division, and it kind of covers exactly that type of stuff. It's like, if it becomes a life and death safety issue type of deal and you have to get high or do dope or something like that, obviously the first thing you need to do is report it.
Sure.
So it's a real scenario guys get faced with, just like you're talking about. Everything from, hey, hit this pipe to, hey man, we're going to go hit a lick. I want you to come
Right.
with us. Drive the
Yep.
car. Go
Or they'll
inside.
call you. They'll call you on the phone and say, "Hey, I know where this Harley is. I'm going to go bump this dude off and get his bike."
Yeah.
And you gotta, you're like, because they used to think they thought that I had a chop shop for bikes. A lot of my unwittings did. A lot of the guys I was working on cases on. So you gotta kind of control them once they get to trusting you too much and relying on you and calling you up all the time. So, but again, we don't need to get into too deep of the weeds on some of that because it's still active. It's still a craft.
It is. Well, how about we jump into this? You've been in a handful of deadly force incidents, the proper shootings, layman's terms. One of which you actually, from my understanding, were kind of almost held hostage for a little while working in an undercover capacity, right?
Sure. Yes.
Man, just share that story with us of what you're allowed to talk about.
Okay. Um, so that one I was actually in mid-level, and I had, but this was over a $50 buy for crack cocaine. So people always say, "Oh, mid-level, multiple kilos, high dollar amounts. That's dangerous." But your mid-level deals, the dope dealers are much more professional. They'll meet you in a nice restaurant, and you'll broker, half kilo to 10 kilo or bigger deals amongst the women and children and the family folks. Those are normally much safer. Now we'll have our goons distributed through the restaurant, and they'll have their goons, and it's a game of trying to pick each other off. But for the most part, the mid-level deals are fairly safe. It's the street level deals that are dangerous because they do not see any value in your life whatsoever. And the only reason that they don't just kill you for the $100 in your pockets because they don't want the cops showing up at their trap house. So those are the ones that, and I've got some really wild stories about buying from inside trap houses in Dallas.
Okay, what's a trap house?
So we call them trap houses. I don't know what you guys call them up there. Probably the same thing.
Same
But
thing. Yeah.
it's basically when you get in, you ain't getting out unless they let you out. There's barricades here. Some left over from the Jamaican days called the Jamaican block. There's the barn door barricade. There's some pretty traditional fortifications we see in the dope houses in our city, and the dope and the shark cages, interior shark cages, things like that. They're going to seriously impede a rescue or a warrant team making entry, and they have to allow you into the trap. And once you're in the trap, you are in there until they allow you out through these fortifications. So it's a trap. So
Shit, that's scary.
Yeah, yeah. It is. You know, I did some stupid things in my life. Riding bulls was one of them. And when buying dope is almost about that same level of adrenaline rush, where you don't have a whole lot of control. You can use your skills to the best of your ability, but you could also get killed, kind of like riding a bull. And I would compare those two on the level of adrenaline, and that never subsided even after all the years of buying dope, buying inside a trap house. A lot of officers even say, well, that's just stupid. And they could be right, but we're all different police officers and we all became cops for different reasons. So I can't argue that that's probably not the smartest thing to do, but it damn sure was fun, so.
All right. So how did you get held hostage?
Okay. So, I was in an apartment complex and trying to buy $50 worth of crack to basically help another detective with his case. And I made the first buy without incident from an older guy. I called him old school. And so he serves me the dope. Or actually, he takes my money and he tells me, hey, you got to hang on a minute. I got to go get the dope. So I figured he was going to go into the kitchen or go into the bedroom or whatever. But he starts putting on his shoes and he goes to walk out the front door. And I'm like, what's up? Where are you going? He says, I got to go. It's not here. I got to go get it. And that's like never happened to me on a dope deal where they leave me in the trap house by myself. And usually, rule number one is you don't let your money walk. Rule number two is every now and then you got to let your money walk type thing. So it's kind of situational dependent, but generally you don't ever let your money walk, whether it's $20 or $50 or whatever, because that's the walk of shame once you get back to the office with the boys, So I looked around and there was enough furniture in there that if he would have walked with my money, that I could have destroyed enough stuff in there to get to have gotten my $50 worth. So I kind of was like, well, this is weird, but sure. I let him walk, and he comes back in 10 minutes or so, and he serves me the rock. No big deal. I get back, type up all the, do all the evidence recovery and all the reports. And I had to go make, long story, but I had to go make a second buy at the location. And so I was sort of expecting the same situation to happen, and it did. And so I give him the $50. He leaves, and then while I'm in there, what I didn't realize, I'm pretty sure, I'm putting this all together and thinking back on it, I think he was just the doorman running the trap. And there's a hierarchy. There's a pecking order in a dope house. And so while I'm in there, this younger guy comes back, looks at me, he comes inside, and we're looking at each other. He's like, who in the hell are you? He pulls a pistol on me immediately. And I'm explaining myself. And so he barricades the trap house, and he's not allowing me to leave. And so my close cover team, my rescue team, was on an open line, but I didn't realize it, but the line had gone down. The open line had lost connection. And so I was expecting, at least a little soft rescue or, a distraction. And it never happened. And when Old School gets back, I'm ready to get the hell out of there. So I pay him the money. And that's when Dope Boy realizes the mistake that's been made, that doorman's been doing him dirty, selling his dope, and the ass whooping commenced. And I was just kind of standing there as a witness, and I go to leave, and it turned into a full-blown just hijacking, just a full robbery. And at that point, I was expecting a hard rescue, but still nothing. And so the story drags on, and there's a lot of dynamics to the story. But to cut through some of the chase on all that, and we got other things to talk about. Unless you guys want to dig into it, it's your show. But
give it to us.
Well, there was a crackhead that had come into the apartment. He had another guy with him. There was at one time there were 7 people in the dope house during this robbery. And I had an opportunity or two to probably shoot my way out of there, but and this, as a police officer, it's just not fair sometimes, the things you got to take into consideration just to go back home to your family, to your wife and kids. My life was obviously in jeopardy, obviously being threatened, held at gunpoint, gone through my wallet, my belongings, all that. And some of the opportunities I had to because I had a pistol, some of the opportunities I had to kill him, I was almost worried about some of the legal ramifications from some of the witnesses due to the circumstances. So anyway, I didn't shoot him in the house, and I just talked my way out of it. I was allowed to leave, and when I left, all my wallet, all my IDs, everything, my money was on the kitchen table. And he tells me, "White boy, get your shit and get out." So he walks to the door, which he gave me his back, which was another opportunity I could have taken. And when he started undoing the barriers and I saw that daylight, I was just like, man, I'm just going to go. I think I can get out of here. I'm going to make it. And I scooped all my stuff up, and, I'm angry. I got an ego, all that stuff. So I scooped up my money. Because he said, get your shit and get out. So I assumed he said, wanted me to get my money back too. So I unrobbed myself and I left. So that was kind of maybe a mistake, Once I get outside, he tracked me down and we squared off in the parking lot. And, he went for his pistol, I went for mine, and he had his buddy with him, and it was 2 against 1. And we trained for that. We trained for that heavily in narcotics and SWAT. And so there was no contest on that deal. And I,
You put both of them down?
What's that?
Did you put both of them down?
Yes. Yeah. One of them didn't make it, the original guy, the guy that didn't need to make it, he didn't make it. So
One for the
anyway,
good
that was
guys.
that. What's that?
That's one for the good guys. That's how we like it,
Oh,
man.
sure. Yeah.
So the guy that didn't make it, huh? Well, probably didn't deserve to make it, huh?
Absolutely not, man. It's one for the good guys. Well, Matt, before we jump into talking about July of 2016, I want to share a little something else out there. Hey, guys, I'm thrilled to share with you one of our newest sponsors here on Coptales&Cocktails, BetterHelp.com. As a police officer for nearly 25 years, I have seen firsthand the emotional and mental toll life can take on people at various times. I myself have no shame in admitting that I've had moments in my own life where reaching out and talking with a professional proved to be a great move on my part. BetterHelp.com is a totally private and safe place where you will be matched up with a licensed professional therapist that fits your needs. All of your sessions are securely done online. And get a load of this, Howard, you can actually send your counselor a message at any time. It doesn't matter if you're struggling with depression, stress, anxiety, relationships, trauma, and so on. They have professional counselors there to help you work through it. BetterHelp.com is available to anyone worldwide, but here in the U.S., so many people are going to BetterHelp.com for assistance that they are hiring more counselors in all 50 states. BetterHelp.com is convenient, it's affordable, and they actually even have financial aid available. And of course, it's 100% confidential. I want you to start living a healthier and happier life. So visit our sponsor, BetterHelp.com/Coptales for 10% off your first month of counseling, and you can join over 1 million people who have taken advantage of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, as in HELP.com/Coptales.
Hey, and no shame. Everybody's brain gets broke every once in a while. You need to go talk to somebody. I know that being a nurse, I've done that, so it's definitely needed.
Absolutely. Nothing wrong with it.
No. All right, let's talk about what happened with the gentleman that targeted police officers.
Yeah. So Matt, man, I know this is probably kind of a hard thing to talk about, obviously, anytime, we lose anybody in the law enforcement family, let alone guys that are from your own agency. It's a tough deal. Like I said, July 2016. I think it was July 7th, if I remember correctly. That sound right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah,
that's right.
That was a big deal. At the time, I think you're out of narcotics at that time. Are you just a SWAT guy, or what are you doing then?
Yep, I was in Dallas SWAT when that happened.
All right,
which is probably a good thing, because I was kind of trained up, for an incident just like that.
Yeah. At the time, how long have you been on the team there when that happened?
2.5 years, probably. I was still new.
Yeah, I'd say, in the world of SWAT, that's a new guy, especially in a larger agency. And, you get some of these smaller places or these multi-department task force. You get guys that are pretty young that are thrown into those. But for a big agency, man, you're a newbie on there for, 3, 4, 5 years. You're cleaning the equipment, you're cleaning the equipment van, all that type of stuff. The fraternity side of things.
You're the water boy.
You literally are.
Hey, fill my camel bag.
And you go get beer for everybody at the parties too. I've been there. I know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah.
So man, you've on the team. How does that call come out over the radio?
So to set it up a little bit, that summer of 2016, that was a brutal year for law enforcement in general.
It was.
You had the Ferguson, Missouri, citizens. I'm not trying to get off political or anything, but the presidential, I guess, the administration had really done, in my opinion, a good job of turning the general public against law enforcement. For the first time in my tenure, he had seen us kind of being looked at as more of the bad guy or the enemy.
Right.
Then even it seemed like the citizens were turning, tides were turning, and law enforcement was not a respected career all of a sudden. And so police administrators were dealing with that by just buckling to the media and the lawyers and more and more policies, and just the cops are being handcuffed more and more by every administrative, police administrator's policy, it seemed like. And city of Dallas, of course, is no different, if not just the ringleader in some of that just passive policing styles. That's the new era of policing, I guess. And so the SWAT team was on tag beats, hot beats, just out there. And while we're having this major protest in our city, instead of being assigned to the protest, which we were originally assigned to the protest, and what that means, and Sticks, this, I mean, you're going to run the route that the parade, you sanction the streets off, and you know that where the route for the protest is going to go, and you do all your intel, you have overwatch, i.e. snipers, things like that, security, all the everything's watched and guarded for the safety of the citizens and for the safety of the officer as much as possible. And if SWAT was assigned to the protest, that's exactly what would have been taking place. You would have had a react team staged and ready, meaning armored personnel carriers, full kit, entry vest, heavy, vest and rifles and all that stuff ready for just such an incident, coupled with the, spotters and observers up on the rooftops to gather intel and just monitor crowd activity. So we didn't have any of that. I think DPD did their best in vetting this protest group, and they actually were correct. It was deemed a peaceful group, and the threat level was apparently low enough to where they canceled SWAT presence and sent us out to sit in the hood just to be visible, officer presence detail basically, except for one guy. So I'm not trying to just throw shade or criticize the police department. It was a lone actor, that screwed this whole thing up. But at the end of the day, yes, SWAT should have been on the protest. So I was sitting about 1.5 miles away, under a tree in a Bank of America parking lot, talking to my wife on the phone, probably complaining about our police chief or whatever, just the protest is going on town, and here we are. I'm sitting under a tree, not doing anything. And I'd hung up the phone with her, and it was just in general, the 2016, if you guys remember, it was just, as a cop, a uniformed police officer, it was just a stress level that had never been there. And just on your daily work routine, your daily hours of duty, it was a stress level that I hadn't experienced as being a cop, almost an in heightened sense of danger, awareness, and just the fact that you're being watched and generally just not liked. And so we were all fed up with it, and we were all also trained. The SWAT team our job was to train Dallas Police Department to respond to active shooters. That's what we did. That's part of our duties, was training other officers, whether it be patrol or Metro or CRT or deployment or whoever. We trained DPD officers how to respond to active shooters. So we were pretty polished. I mean, we trained it, we teach it, we train it ourselves. So we're kind of ready to go when that kicked off. Everybody was kind of expecting it, and the amount of active shooters that we were having constantly. So anyway, the hot tone goes off, which, is the beep, and you turn the radio up because someone's getting shot, stabbed, or worst case scenario, officer or assist, or even worse than that, officer down. And sure as hell, it was an officer down call that came out. So, I'm burnt up to the edge of the parking lot, and I'm on Greenville Avenue, needing to go right or left. I'm just waiting for the location. I got one foot slamming on the brake and the other one feathering the gas because I'm going to launch as soon as I know if I'm going right or left. And it was officer down downtown at Market Lamar. And I'm thinking, man, that's close to the protest. And so there I go. And the radio traffic just kept getting more and more horrific. I don't know if you guys, a lot of that stuff's even on YouTube and stuff. I don't think it's super hard to find the radio traffic, but Sean, it's just officer down, then we got multiple officers down, then we got multiple shooters, and then you hear the officers doing the extractions and trying to do the rescue, and you can hear that they're pinned down, and that you've never seen anything like this in your career or even heard it. And so it's not a feeling that's really describable, and I work deep nights and responding to an officer assist on deep nights is very hair raising. But when something of this magnitude pops off, it's a lot to I don't know, comprehend. And it's kind of getting dark. It was right at dusk, and the whole damn city lit up with red and blues. I mean, it was like a fire ant hill with the red and blues running everywhere. And so then I was really stressed out about not running over one of the officers that I was pretty sure was going to cut me off at an intersection trying to get there, because everybody was just beating those vehicles trying to get down there.
Yeah,
I mean, there was
unfortunately.
responses from Dallas County sheriffs, the game wardens, the state troopers, all the neighboring agencies were just running hot, and it was an overwhelming response because of the heinous radio traffic. So I got there probably less than 2 minutes. I mean, I was that close. And getting out of the Tahoe, I could hear it sounded to me like a full auto rifle. And, I see officers hauling ass that directions. I see all the citizens just pouring the other direction. And I'd started to make my way down there. I got full sprint, probably 4 steps into it, and I heard that crack, 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 crack. And so I just kept running right back around to the back of my Tahoe to get my rifle and a chicken, a plate carrier at least. And kind of felt like a bitch at doing that, because you're wasting time and wasting seconds, and you're looking up and there's patrol officers wearing neon traffic vest and duty shorts, and they're just hauling ass in there with a little pistol. So yeah, I did. I took the time to get some protective gear, and of course my vest is laced with every gadget you can think of, being in SWAT, with smoke and bangs and gas mask and you name it. It's tricked out with everything. All right, so anyway, I've got all kind of stuff on the vest, and I make my way into the college or downtown really, and I'm just kind of following the body language of the officers on where to go, and come up to the front of this college. I'd never been in this college a day before in my life, and there was a lot of brain matter and blood, and a pair of Oakleys and a Glock magazine piled up on the sidewalk, and I was like, that's got to be an officer. And anyway, made my way into the college, where he had shot up the front of the college, and I was following the blood trail through the lobby and up through the stairwell. In the stairwell, there was a nice grouping where you could tell he had shot from overhead. And John, those stairwells are nightmares. You got your long cover and your overwatch and your back cover, and they're just, I had one other officer with me.
Yeah, you're fucked. I mean, it's a death trap. Yeah, it's a bad place.
Sure, and knowing that he'd already ambushed while he was in there.
Even in a 2-story house on a search warrant, I mean, going up the stairs, just that second level, it sucks. It's not fun.
Sure. And so we come up to the second level, where he had laid in wait for an ambush, and he had wrote some stuff on the wall, RBG on the wall in his own blood. And there was a nice little pile of blood where he was waiting, and it was a perfect ambush point. And stuff's kind of spooky, because like that's where I would post up for an ambush. Like, who is this guy? So and when he was out in the street, he was moving very graceful, very tactically, and so it's just it was a real spooky. You were going up against a gamer, a pretty solid opponent. And so I get up onto the second floor, and it's a little dark colored carpet, so the blood trail disappears. And another one of my buddies in SWAT came running down the hallway, and he said, he's down here. We've just gotten a gunfight with him. He might be pinned down. So I linked up with Danny Canetti, and we ran back down the hallway, where there was 2 other SWAT officers holding a hard cover on a corner down the hallway. And so I link up with them. I look around, assess the situation, and figured that I was probably going to be shooting through walls, maybe doors, glass. And so I took the ballistic ammo out and I chambered some barrier rounds, some bonded ammo, and, racked it into the chamber, which triggered him to just dump on us. Probably 15 rounds came at us. I didn't realize that he was right there, like right there, right there. Scared the shit out of me. The other guys, you know, were a little more, I guess, conditioned to it because they had already gotten a pretty good gunfight with him there from that corner. So I jumped like a bitch, you know, and they just stood fast. And so we were kind of sitting ducks at the end of this hallway. I didn't realize it, but he was trapped. And there was a concrete stairwell off to our left, and we're having a discussion. You know, I had full kit, and they're like, "Let's bang him." So I'm like, so I'm holding cover, I'm holding long, and I told him where my bang was, and he gets it out, and they're like, "Well, Baines, you want to bang him?" I'm like, "I ain't banging him because there's going to be if we bang him, there's going to be repercussions to this. Danny, you bang him, and I'll hold. I got this, you know." And so Danny's like, "Nah." So anyway, the bang got passed around, and it ended up back in my pouch because we realized we weren't dealing with your dope dealer. You know what I mean? And we didn't want to smoke that hallway up and him have that concealment to push in on us while we were waiting on the smoke to clear. So we gave this dude his due respect, and we had quite the interesting conversation with him in between our gun battles. And he was just motivated by race and just rage. And, you know, he was textbook definition of a terrorist. He just wasn't motivated by religion, you know, and he wanted as many dead white police officers as he could stack up. And he articulated that very clearly. And he was completely resolved and completely committed and warrior mindset that I've never even heard about in all the training, you know, we do as a police officer. Something I'd never seen. And so we engaged, we got in a couple gunfights there at the corner. We pushed over to the concrete stairwell for safety, and we put a robot in that hallway so we could maintain a visual in case he tried to push down the hallway on us, because getting into the stairwell, we gave up the line of sight on the hallway. So it was quite a big compromise, but we maintained that visual by the use of a robot. So our lead negotiator gets there. They go back and forth for several hours, and this newer guy, not newer, he was a younger guy on the SWAT team, comes up with this idea because the bad guy was asking for a cell phone, and so the bad guy, talking about him, he had served in the Army, and I had talked to him about that briefly. He really wasn't proud of his service. He said he just built stuff over there, you know, and I asked him where he got his combat training from and how he knew all this stuff about firearms, because we talked about his weapon platform and all this stuff. And he says he trained all that on his own, and he's been preparing for this physically and mentally. He was stone sober, and you know, we had a pretty good dialogue about all his preparation for this, and we found his manifesto where he was taking notes on shooting and moving and flanking, and you know, pretty good stuff, coupled with the mindset that he had. And he was, you know, he was gonna win a fight. So one of the younger guys, when he was down there asking for a phone, said, "Hey, if we're gonna send him a phone, let's blow his ass up." And
Hell
so
yeah.
that's kind of how it was derived, you know. And sure enough, that's kind of what we started doing. I think it was a half pound of C4, maybe a pound. And they got a book from the library there on the second floor, and they used it as the frame for the charge. And they took a boot knife and cut a hole in it, and they made a donut out of det cord. And in the donut hole, they packed a half pound. I'm not a, you know, explosive breacher, but they packed I think it was a half pound of C4, and then wrapped the whole thing in 100-mile-an-hour tape, put it in the mandrels of the robot, and just delivered it to him, and just detonated it probably 2 or 3 feet from him.
Jesus.
So that's how that all went down.
And he wasn't from the Dallas area, right? He traveled down
Correct.
specifically to do this.
His mom and dad lived in Mesquite, which is right here in Dallas.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if he lived with them or not, but he had gotten discharged from the military from some sort of harassment or sexual allegations.
Yeah,
I'm not sure all the details.
I read about that. He had a friend there, and he had stole some panties from her, and he had a pair in his, I guess his jockey box where he slept. Then he had 3 pairs on him, and they caught him with him, and he got in trouble and got kicked out of the service for that. So he was he wasn't stable to begin with, but it sounds like he got pretty radicalized and decided that he was going to take matters into his own hands.
Well, I'll tell you what, he shot 12 officers. He shot 12 officers, killed 5.
Jesus, that's a bad day.
Well, you said it earlier, Matt. I don't want to say by any means like a good adversary, but I mean, this guy is the rarity for those of us in law enforcement to ever have to deal with. I mean, it's the vast majority of these shootings that happen that cops get into, they are split second.
Yep.
They're not planned. You know, you walk up on a car stop or a ped check or something like that. You show up at a domestic, whatever it may be. It's nothing planned. This guy, he was planned. And if you take somebody who's got, you know, a good weapon that they know how to use and they are mentally in it, they can inflict some damage, which obviously happened. And as you mentioned, you know, Matt, 5 officers died that day. And how many others were injured total?
12.
12, yeah. I mean, so just a horrific day for the city of Dallas, for Dallas PD, you know, law enforcement across the country. And you know, we've only got a minute or so left here, but to the young officer that you said came up with that idea, I don't know if he's, you know, was part of your bomb squad, a SWAT guy, you know, has had experience military overseas, you know, doing something like that. But that is the first that I know of here in the U.S., you know, especially for law enforcement to use a tactic. And, you know, and listen, you know, some of these civilians out there, they, you know, I've had this conversation recently. Violence is not pretty at all. And, you know, for the violent people that are out there in society that do things like that, you've got to have good guys that can bring it to it and match it or even do more than they do. And it doesn't matter if it's a 223 round that we're shooting down the barrel of a rifle at somebody to stop them, or if it's a 2,000-pound car you use to run over somebody, or if it's a bomb attached to a robot. You know, our job is to stop the threat of somebody that's out there doing these type of things by any means necessary. And so, you know, a horrible, horrible day for you guys there. But you know, for that officer that came up with that idea, man, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, his name is Marshall Milligan. He's a SWAT guy. He's still on SWAT. He was my squad mate, Dirty 30s.
Yeah, Dirty 30s. I love it.
Well, we appreciate you being on today, sir. Here's to you. That's a heck of a story.
Cheers, buddy.
If we could you text us a picture of that goatee? I want to get an 8x10 glossy printed up, put it in my bathroom, so I have something to.
Just don't put it in your bedroom.
Well,
don't put it in your bedroom.
It'll just ruin my bedroom, huh? Well, we appreciate you being on today, sir. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, y'all stay in touch.
All right, buddy. Hey, man, seriously, big thank you. Be safe out there.